Fanned by the southerly, the fire ripped through a 100-hectare parcel of bushland behind the Rathmines industrial estate at about 1:30. Flames and thick smoke forced traffic on the West Lakes main road to a standstill. But of greatest concern to the 8 units fighting the blaze was the industrial estate itself. Businesses in the Rathmines Industrial Park watched in fear as the fire raced down the valley towards them. In particular, the manager of a timber company was afraid that his $100,000 worth of stock was about to go up in flames.
Well, as soon as we saw it coming and the fire brigade said it was going to, it was inevitable that it was going to come through, we knew sort of we had to move the stuff that was the closest.
While forklifts furiously moved timber in the yard, officers set up fire breaks along the industrial estate's perimeters. By 3:30, the officers were winning their fight against the flames.
The only part that's still giving us some trouble is this, we're just trying to lock it up in the area on the easterly side.
District Officer Parker says at this stage the cause of the fire is unknown. Late this afternoon, fire units were continuing backburning from the industrial estate to Wangi. Scott Bevan, NBN News.
The picture is just as gloomy in the Hunter. Figures released by the Department of Social Security show almost 10,000 people have joined the region's dole queues over the last year. Worst hit has been the Central Coast, where the number of people receiving job search and New Start allowances has risen by more than 1,500 in both Wyong and Gosford. Hornsby, which is included in the area's statistics, jumped from 894 to 2,068, while Maitland and Mayfield both recorded significant increases of more than 850 people. The Central Newcastle office reported an increase of 618, part of a region-wide jump of 9,990. Figures comparable to the national unemployment level of 10.2% won't be available for some time. The Australian Bureau of Statistics simply hasn't broken down the data on a region-by-region basis as yet. One thing is certain, the Hunter will be above that national average of 10.2 and well in excess of the state level of 9.8%. The most recent regional figures relate to statistics compiled in May. They show a Hunter unemployment rate of 11%, and as we know, things have only been getting worse. Bruce Mackenzie, NBN News.
Jeff received the bronze medal for bravery from the Governor Rear Admiral Peter Sinclair in a ceremony at Government House. Denying he is a hero, the paramedic with 12 years' experience said he was just doing his job.
It was a calculated risk that the patient had to be assisted, and there was no way we could stay outside and leave the patient inside the vehicle in the condition he was.
It may have been a calculated risk, but the mixture of leaking petrol, tins of paint and a live battery lead could have easily meant disaster. Jeff Mulborough supported his patient for 45 minutes till he was released. More than a year later, Jeff says he is honoured to accept the award, not just for himself, but also on behalf of all his workmates.
I've never seen an ambulance officer or paramedic shirk the responsibility that he's given to assist the sick and injured.
engaging, but notice it says there is reason for hope.
Monica has only been competing for a couple of years, while husband Paul has been in the business for some time. Paul has won the state title on numerous occasions, has competed in the Mr Universe event, was crowned Mr South Pacific in 1987, and in the Australian Championships has a second, 3/3 and a fourth to his credit. To finally win the heavyweight division was a tremendous thrill for the gentle giant.
Finally to get there after competing for 6 or 7 years at this contest, and then breaking a string of placings to finally place first was ecstatic actually.
For Monica, a win in the Australian novice section and a second in the middleweight division was equally thrilling, since it was only her second year of competition. Now with this title and the East Coast Championship under her belt, the future's bright.
I'm going to try my luck at the Australasian titles, which is in early March, this coming March, and try the Australians again next year.
And with all the muscle toning and building required, Monica is trying to add a touch of glamour to the sport.
The general public has been shown hard, muscular women for a long time, and I'd like to change that, perhaps show them something that they haven't seen, that muscles can look good.
To get to be a champion in any sport takes a lot of hard work and dedication, and in bodybuilding there's more than just pumping iron.
I do a lot of aerobic work before a competition to lose the body fat, so it's not just training with weights. There's the nutrition side, there's the aerobic side, and also the mental side too, to have the willpower to do it.
The Fourth Crusade wasn't one of the best campaigns the Knights have been through, but the thought of a tough year on the paddock will be forgotten in a couple of hours as the merriment of the evening and the future prospects for a brighter future take hold. The Western Suburbs Auditorium is a blaze of colour, resembling medieval times, with the odd reminder that patrons are part of a proud new club in the Winfield Cup. And it's sure to be some party.
They'll have a marvellous night. It's the best show in the town. There's no doubt about that. 6:30 start, go till 3 a.m. If you can manage to walk out, you go home and, sleep it off.
Apart from the fun and games tonight, a time to present some trophies to the people who really count, the players who have excelled themselves this season.
The Player of the Year will be announced tonight, and of course we'll be representing the Excalibur Trophy to the 3 players that have won that in various grades throughout the year, and it's going to be a very, very good night.
Looking as beautiful as that.
The festival has been the ideal chance for some to make new friends, for others to simply go ape. If the feet were taking a pounding in the parade, it was the stomach that was in the spotlight in the Derby Street Food and Wine Festival. The food on offer had a multicultural flavour, as did the entertainment. And with smiles, perhaps the biggest item on the menu, the only thing that had the blues was the music.
Madeline West trained as a nurse at Wallsend Hospital in the 1940s. She is one of the many supporters who tried to stop the closure of the hospital by taking part in protest marches and manning the community picket line. Today, she joined with former employees and locals who paid their last respects to the institution, which was an integral part of their lives.
In my day, it was like a big family, you know, when I worked here, and I think it has carried on too, you know, and I think the breaking up of it has upset a terrible lot of people's lives.
The service was held because it was believed that many of the Wallsend staff had not dealt with their anger and grief about the axing of services at the hospital.
We then began to see that it was a bit like a death without a funeral, and that people did need the opportunity to come to grips with those feelings. And so the whole purpose was to try and help them to move beyond that feeling of hurt and anger and to one of hope for the future.
Meanwhile, nurses have planned a statewide stoppage on Tuesday to voice their concerns about diminishing health services. While a skeleton staff will remain at hospitals in the Hunter, volunteers will be relied on to care for many of the patients. Fears are growing that the next casualty will be the casualty unit itself at the Royal Newcastle Hospital. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
Originally from Northern Ireland, Barclay moved to New Zealand 9 years ago when he was 21, and a couple of months ago linked with the Breakers for their first assault on the National Soccer League. Spectators saw his skill in the first match against Adelaide City. On that night, Barclay was denied a goal by the brilliance of Robert Zabika. But on Friday last, Barclay etched himself into the record books by scoring the Breakers' first goal in the NSL.
It's always important for strikers to score goals. I think it was good for us to score first. Obviously, if we'd have got a loss on Friday night, it would have been hard to sort of get people to come back and support us again, even though we were playing the two top teams. But I think everybody, the players and Bruce and all the rest of the team thought we had to get something out of Friday night, and it was so important to score the first goal. I think everybody was quite relieved more than anything.
There wasn't a passenger against South Melbourne, and Barclay combined superbly with Andy Koska for number 2. All over the park, the Breakers attacked, and with the abundance of talent on either side and players pushing forward, it's a striker's paradise.
We got a left full-back and a midfielder scoring goals, and we got crosses from both the left and the right. I mean, with the formation we play, everybody's going to get forward, and it's great for forwards because they just got to make sure they get in the box because the ball's always going to come in, and we've had so many goal-scoring opportunities in the last 2 games that reads good for the future.
The 3-day event was most important as riders and horses were competing in front of the Australian selectors, and with the Barcelona Olympics just around the corner, a good showing was essential. World champion Blythe Tate of New Zealand was up against some determined opposition, and he struggled to finish fourth aboard his charge Midnight Express. John Cooper of Somersby on the Central Coast turned in a great performance riding Cabanata, and his final round was almost perfect, but at the wrong time disaster. 4 penalty points, and he would have to be content with third spot. But the battle for the major placings was a beauty and went right to the wire. Felicity Cribb of Queensland aboard Allendale Lodge Carmody Street had ridden brilliantly on day 2 to jump to second place, and a near faultless display in the last round put the pressure on the leader, Andrew Hoy. At the end of her round, Cribb acknowledged the tremendous performance of Carmody Street. But Hoy wasn't going to be shaken from the top of the table and was cool under pressure to steer his Mount Kiwi to a well-deserved win. Hoy accepted the accolades of the crowd and, along with Kiwi, the title of International 3-Day Champion of Victoria.
This small gadget could save your life, according to Deputy Regional Commander John Craig. Most house fires occur at night when residents are asleep. If there are casualties, in more than half of the cases they are suffocated by the smoke. A detector would alert them to the presence of the fire.
It's in those early hours of the morning that when people are asleep and the smoke penetrates through the house, that's when we get a lot of our fatalities.
This is Fire Awareness Week, and the brigade wants people to take the precaution of installing a detector in their homes, preferably near the lounge or bedrooms.
When you have a look and see what's available on the market today, and for the price, it's a very small price to pay for a life.
Craig Freedman of Mayfield hasn't won too much in his life. That was up until yesterday morning when his name was drawn out of the barrel on NBN Sports Centre Sunday program as the winner of the Mazda Super Shot competition. Craig correctly selected this shot from Butch Hayes as the winner. All of a sudden, he was the owner of a brand new 121, and it couldn't have come at a better time. The Taxation Department employee's 1974 Escort was today at the car doctor's, suffering all sorts of ills. So a quick trip to Cardiff, and the General Manager Wayne Stewart had the honour of handing over the keys.
Hope you have many happy years of motoring. Welcome to the Mazda family.
Thanks very much, Wayne.
And seated in the new vehicle, Craig Freeman reflected on the announcement.
I just couldn't believe it, Mike. I was totally stoked. It was fantastic. As you know, I need a new car, so it just came at the right time. It was great.
Every Wednesday may not have been brilliant, but for one young man from Mayfield, it couldn't have been better.
Steve McNulty took just 8 weeks to come up with the sewer lift support. Inspired by his work at the Hunter Water Board and recent legislation requiring hand-operated lifting equipment at the surface of underground operations, the invention can stop a fall or retrieve an injured person. Easy to erect, the base fits over any small opening. A frame holding a winch mechanism then slides onto it.
It's basically a fall arrest block that is attached to the frame that I've made. The block has been around for quite a while, but there's been nothing really to attach the block onto apart from the basic tripod.
Where tripods are often difficult to erect, this frame goes anywhere. Within minutes, workers are hooked onto a safety mechanism which will catch them if they fall or hoist them to safety in the event of an accident. It's a development which could be used for any rescue in any confined space below ground.
The base is not only adaptable for sewer situations, but for any hole or small hole that are basically in the ground.
Selling for $2,500, the lift support is already in demand.
It's had work cover endorsement on it, and we've had sales to not only the Hunter Water Board but the Great Lakes Shire Council, and also we've got interest from the Gold Coast City Council, Telecom, Sydney Water Board, the ACT, Sewer and Electricity Authority, and the same with the Northern Territory.
There was plenty of smoke, but thankfully little fire on the Central Coast today. No rest for the firefighters, though, as backburning operations continued throughout the day.
Rightio, give us 10.
What? 10 minutes. Bed and water, don't you say? They've got to lose some.
Their efforts couldn't save 3 houses on the Ridgeway Road near Matcham. This tin and timber holiday home was destroyed well before its owners had arrived from Sydney. Just 2 kilometres along the road, a similar story of destruction.
Everything, there's not anything left. Zero. Just have a look, you know, it's just nothing.
Fortunate your parents weren't here when the fire went through.
Yeah, they were in Sydney, luckily, otherwise don't know what would have happened. I think it was a blessing that they weren't here. It came through so quickly, they said.
But for every story of despair, there was another of relief. The fire jumped the entrance road at Batto Bay and charged towards a densely populated residential area. Miraculously, almost no damage was reported.
A freak last-minute change in the wind. It was coming straight from the west and would certainly have immolated the nursery, except that just at the crucial moment, for about 10 seconds, it moved to the south. And that was all it needed to save the place.
Spot fires continue to cause concern, and 120 firefighters will remain on duty in the area overnight.
For more than a century and a half, Beltrees has been synonymous with Scone, with the age of the squatters, and with one of the wealthiest families in the Hunter Valley, the Whites. Founded in 1831, Beltrees has nurtured millions of sheep, a few Melbourne Cup winners, and one of Australia's greatest novelists, Patrick White. The 160-year-old heritage of Beltrees will be celebrated for the next 2 nights in a $45,000 light and sound spectacular in the grounds of the property.
We've got locals, we've got animals, we've got bulls, we've got Cobb and Co coaches, we've got sulkies, there are draft horses, there are shearers, look, the list goes on.
The spectacular combines time-honoured traditions such as shearing and state-of-the-art technology. But director Peter Fay says the real stars are the locals.
And we've been knocking them back with a stick. We've got a cast of 130 and they're all virtually within a radius of 5 to 10 miles, 20 miles into Scone.
And the locals, it seems, have been happy to don period costumes and take part in the pageant.
Beltrees is very special.
Good to preserve these sort of things and keep them going, because a lot of big places are being cut up and that sort of thing, so it's good to see somebody sort of actually hanging on to their country and making something of it.
Judy White, a 5th-generation Beltrees resident, says the spectacular is more than a family celebration. It's a tribute to Australia's pioneering spirit.
One of the things I want them to be realising as we're talking about what happened here is be conscious of their pioneering history. Every individual people's family is very important.
Scott Bevan, NBN News.